You're listening to Cap Free Sports Radio, where the takes are bold, the facts are real, and the cap is nowhere in sight. From the locker room to the headlines, we keep it 100 every sport, every time. Let's get into it.
Brought to you by any and all fantasy sports platforms other than the new ESPN app.
That's right. It is Monday, August 18th, 2025, and we're back. I gotta apologize for the 6-year delay, and even furthermore, I gotta apologize for the couple of days of delay as well. I'm sorry, I got a real job, and it required me to work this weekend a little bit. And, of course, I'm gonna go ahead and keep that job until this podcast goes ahead and blows up. So, yeah. Has everyone been enjoying preseason football? Because I know I have absolutely not. Every year preseason comes, August comes, I completely, to as much as I can, I ignore everything in the preseason because it don't mean a lot. I will say that I did find myself during the first week, I think it was Carolina was playing against Cleveland, and I think a lot of people had their eyes on that game because of Shedeur Sanders, and just we're going to see what he did, and he did pretty good. In fact, he'll be a topic later on in this show. And other topics that we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about the delusional Chiefs haters out there. Well, are they delusional or not? We're going to find out. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple of quarterbacks in the NFC, and one in the AFC at least. And then there's also going to be a couple of personal experiences to update you on because I've been gone for 6 years. Well, there's been something very significant for me in at least 3.5 of those years, and we will get to that. On top of that, we're going to talk about best ball. I'm not sure if everybody is on the best ball train yet, but I think I prefer best ball to fantasy regular league football. But it's not that I'm completely out of these leagues because we're going to talk about at least one of my leagues. Probably I might cover the couple that I am in. And again, another personal matter, an offer I got from a friend of mine. We'll get to that. We'll get to that here in a minute. I was debating whether to lead off with this or not. But let's talk about Shedeur Sanders while we're here. This guy, he's getting a lot of media attention. He has pretty much since day one, since the draft, since before the draft, the last 2 college football seasons at Colorado, and even before that at Jackson State, he was putting them on the map. There's no doubt Sanders is a TV draw, and it's got me wondering, has the NFL seen the playbook of the WNBA, as crazy as that sounds? Because the NFL does not struggle for ratings at all. They are appointment television every Sunday and Thursday and Monday and beyond. But is this Sanders thing, is this starting to turn a little bit into like a Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese type deal? Because you go in comment sections anywhere on the internet, you're seeing it. I feel like same thing with that debate. Are people like masking their racism behind a sports debate? Because that's what it feels like so many times with the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese situation. And now it's kind of like one group is for Sanders and the other group is openly against Sanders, and it's pretty wild. Sanders, he's done a good job in the media. I think he's clearly PR trained because he does such a good job since he's been with Cleveland, handling the media questions, answering them, in a very respectful and positive manner that also makes sense and does not compromise his position in a quarterback battle or anything like that. And the one game that he was on the field in the NFL, he performed well. He played a half. He had 2 touchdowns. He didn't have an interception. I don't know. He had something like 150 plus yards or something like that. And then he also was able to lead a 2-minute drill right before the half, which I think everybody saw Joe Flacco was very pleased with. But then you seen Dylan Gabriel, and he just had like no expression on his face. I'm not gonna call him a hater, but I mean, if you're competing against somebody, it may not even be that you want them to do poorly, but it might not hurt your feelings if they did do poorly. And then you got Deshaun Watson there, and it's like, goodness, nobody wants the guy there. He don't want to be there. They're paying him all this money. I guess he probably doesn't mind. He probably don't mind being there because he gets to collect that check every week. So he's probably good with that. So, yeah, like I'm saying, Sanders, he performed well the one game that he played. Now, it was against Carolina, which that's either way. I do think Carolina is quite improved, actually. Can't be much worse than they were 2 years ago. And but the thing is, it's preseason, so it's often not full first unit players out there. So it is what it is. I mean, you can only play what they put out there. You can only play against what they put in front of you. So that is what it is. And then, of course, Sanders ends up with an oblique injury. And we see Jalen Hurts carting him off at a mutual practice with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns. So, I mean, that's the one thing Sanders did not need at this stage of the game. But I do think, this is just my theory. My theory is that Cleveland always planned to have Flacco start week 1. And for as many weeks as it made sense. Because they did. Remember, Cleveland did not have a great year last year. But in 2023, Cleveland was in the playoffs, and that's because their defense was good. And I think they lost Chubb pretty early that year too. But they treaded water based on their defense. They had a few weeks with no quarterback. They were starting Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and there was 1 or 2 guys you never want to even see out there. And then somehow they decided to go get Flacco, and Flacco was able to play a strong ball and guide them the rest of the way into the playoffs, where, of course, it did not go well. But hey, you got 32 teams, and yeah, it's getting to the point where almost half of them make the playoffs. 14 of them do. But it's still not half of them. And you'd still, I promise you, no matter what team you are, you would rather have the 7 seed and be playing in week, 19 now? Yeah. Week 19 wild card football than to be watching wild card football with no exact rooting interest other than maybe if you place a bet on it. But yeah, of course, you want your team in there, and that's what Flacco was able to do. So I figure Cleveland wants Flacco for week 1, and as long as it can last. And whoever emerges as the rookie between Gabriel and Sanders, and I mean, if we're being completely objective here, it feels like Sanders has the upper hand in that battle, despite Sanders being the 5th round pick and Gabriel being the 3rd round pick. It just feels like with the performance we've seen so far, and, with the way that, I don't know, just to me, like, the size is a thing. Like, Gabriel's kind of a small guy, and it's not that it's never happened before, but, I mean, Drew Brees is the exception, not the rule. Russell Wilson, also a partial exception, but definitely not the rule. Generally, you want your guys to be at least 6'2" or 3. 6'3" is nice. If you can get them up there to 6'5", then you're in real good shape. That's about the way you want a quarterback to be. And Sanders fits that particular build a lot better than Dylan Gabriel does. So, yeah, I mean, I think Sanders will get his opportunity this year. As crazy as that would sound if I told you that on draft night, or excuse me, if I told you that on not only draft night but draft day 3, you'd think I'm crazy. It seemed like the NFL was particularly going out of their way to blackball the kid, but somehow Cleveland, of all franchises, was the one to step to the plate, select the guy. Some people will tell you that their draft room didn't look particularly excited, but they did it, and I got a feeling, I was asking people if I gave you Sanders over under on 4.5 games started this year, and the most people I sent that to, they said over. And I wasn't sure. That's why I was asking the question. I was curious what people thought. Yeah, the more I think about it, I don't see why not. And like I am saying, I think Flacco for week 1 is what they always planned. I don't know if it's guaranteed. If Sanders overcomes this oblique injury, has a strong week 3 preseason performance to the point where he becomes undeniable, I don't think it's totally out of the question if Sanders were to start week 1. So we'll see how that goes. I know we will all have our eyes on Sanders throughout this season at least, probably throughout his entire career. So, you can't say Deion never did nothing for him, or should I say Coach Prime, because that is a very respectable man. He prefers to be called Coach Prime, so let me go ahead and do that. And yeah, not only does he raise his own sons in a manner that, commands respect of not only himself, but for everyone around. Like, they have to respect people, and they do. Like, not only his own sons, but he's doing a great job with other people's sons to get them to act right. Let's just keep it how it needs to be. He gets some kids to act right, and we're gonna see the fruit of that labor. Hopefully in 2025, but it's coming. Just like he told y'all in the beginning, it's coming. Speaking of coming, when are these Chiefs haters gonna come to the realization that there is no league preferential treatment? The referees are not making calls to benefit Kansas City. It's just never been the case. This is what happens when a team just gets good for an extended period of time, because it ain't long ago you guys all hated the Patriots the same way. You said that the refs was helping the Patriots and the league was helping the Patriots, even though the league was openly in legal battles against the New England Patriots multiple times. That's what happened with the Yankees back in the late 90s. Now, you weren't saying the refs were helping them or nothing like that. That's kind of hard to do in baseball. But they spent all the money. They bought their team. It is what it is. And with the Chiefs, that's what 7 years of going to the AFC Championship game, 6 of them at home. That's what that'll do. It dilutes the mind of the casual fan or the fan of the other teams that, there's only 2 spots in the AFC Championship every year. And if one team is locked into one spot, that makes it tough. That makes it tough for the other 15 teams to try to figure out who's coming to the Arrowhead Invitational each January. So, part of me gets it that you guys are upset that you don't have what the Chiefs have at this time. Trust me, though, the Chiefs didn't always have it like this, and there's a very good chance that it ain't always going to be like that for the Chiefs. But while we're here, how about we, respect what the Chiefs are doing, because that's what they deserve. They go out there and they win. Let's go last year real quick. Last year was ugly. They won 15 games. They never won by a lot of points. But here's the thing. They done figured out how to win these games, how to win the close games. And that's how it goes. If you go back the year before, 2023, the Chiefs were looking like they were on the ropes. They were losing all the close games. They continued over and over to be in the close games, and they would find ways to lose them. They found some unique ways to lose them that year, too. I don't even want to mention how some of those losses went. But guess what? The Chiefs 2023 team, they were so bad, and everybody absolutely knew they were going to get beat in the first round of the playoffs. And then they didn't. But that was because it was negative 58 degrees outside. And then everybody was for sure Buffalo is finally going to beat Kansas City in the playoffs because Kansas City's never had to go to Buffalo. And then they didn't. Buffalo didn't do it. But then, for sure, 100%, this is Lamar Jackson's year. He's the MVP. The Chiefs really can't do nothing to stop them. And basically, Baltimore is going to roll all over the Chiefs. 37-16, 44-15. I swear to God, I seen one that said like 76-3 or 76-0. Promise you that I saw it. All those scores were written. This is how Baltimore was going to beat the Chiefs that day. And it did not happen. Because I know the score was only 17-10, but Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce decided on the opening possession they were going to get a touchdown. And that's what they did, even though it took a crazy fourth down play on the Ravens side of the field, inside the 30. Took a crazy, backyard football play from Mahomes and Kelce to extend that drive. And then the touchdown from Mahomes to Kelce. And I'm not sure if Taylor Swift was in the audience that day, but I'm sure if Taylor Swift was there, that's probably the reason that the Chiefs won. And not because their defense played lockdown football on Baltimore, including playing the whole field, all 100 yards, meaning when Zay Flowers was going in for a touchdown, Snead was there to knock the football out and make sure that they didn't get a touchdown. And when Lamar was driving in the fourth quarter, although he still needed 10 points, any points there would have helped. So he's already in field goal range, but he decides to throw an interception into basically all Chiefs in the end zone. And not to mention the game plan that Baltimore brought to that game, where they've been running all over everybody all year, but they've decided to throw the ball today. That's what the Chiefs do to people. They make them change their game plan. And I don't blame them. You got to try something. But really, though, the Chiefs aren't winning because of any help from anyone else. And then the reason this gets brought up is now you've got Rashee Rice, who has some off-the-field legal issues going on. And it just came out this last week that no decision would be made on Rice's suspension or potential suspension from the league until at least September 30th, which must be his next court date. And the internet immediately likes to think that somehow pushing this suspension into the middle of the season potentially somehow helps the Chiefs, when it's the exact opposite. If you're the Chiefs, you'd rather have this guy get suspended, whatever he's going to get suspended, 2, 4, 6, whatever games on the beginning of the season, have him come in, get conditioned, and then go for the stretch run. You don't want to have him, not to mention coming off an ACL tear, you don't want to have him go through camp, start the season get ramped up to start the season week 1, play 4 or 5 games, then the league come down and say, hey, you're suspended 6 games starting right now. So he's got all ramped up. In fact, through those first 4 weeks, he's probably working his way up to get more ramped up, just to get cut off right there, get pushed out for 6 weeks. The bye week's week 10, so it'll probably be more like 7 or 8 weeks. The guy is without actual football, game speed situations, and then ask him to come back up. You're basically going to have this guy have another training camp in November to get ready for the stretch run. It's actually, it's really a recipe for disaster, to be honest with you. So in no way does pushing Rice's suspension back a month, in no way does that benefit the Chiefs. And you guys out there that think that it's true, that the league is trying to help the Chiefs overall, and specifically with the Rice situation, y'all are crazy. You need to cut it out. And don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when the Chiefs aren't that great this year in the regular season, but they're just good enough. And when January comes, they'll be just good enough again. Now, sure, some of you could say, they could be just as good as they want in January. But what happens when February comes? Well, there's no doubt we got our ass kicked in the Super Bowl. Shit happens. I mean, it wasn't a very fun day at all. It wasn't. And I know it was fun for a lot of y'all, but you can't win them all. I'll tell you this. That day sucked. It was terrible. But two things made it a little less sucky. Well, 3 things, I should say. The 3 times we won the Super Bowl in the last, handful of years, that made it suck a little less. And since we're getting our ass kicked by Philadelphia, and I do have a lot of friends that are Philadelphia fans, what made that a little less sucky was the fact that we got them first 2 years ago. So, me personally, I would prefer to avoid the rubber match. I don't really need to find out who's better between us and Philadelphia. If that sounds like I'm a little scared of Philadelphia, maybe I am. They're damn good. They got a good program. They got a good front office, and they got a good, people don't like Sirianni, but he's a reasonable head coach. He's his own way. I don't mind that about him. He doesn't change for nobody. But then besides all that, well, because of the fact that they have good ownership and a good front office, they have really good players on the field, all over that field. And the rest of the league just keeps letting Philadelphia do it. So if it happens, it happens. I don't know. I like to think Patrick Mahomes would find a way to get it done, because you can't really go out like that. And I mean, y'all doubt Mahomes a fair amount. I don't recommend it. We'll see what happens this year.
You're listening to Cap Free Sports Radio, where the takes are bold, the facts are real, and the cap is nowhere in sight. From the locker room to the headlines, we keep it 100 every sport, every time.
CFL update.
If anybody remembers from the original podcast with a different name from 6 years ago, I would often talk about the CFL, Fantasy Football League. Well, it's actually crazy that back then the league was closer to its start, which started in 2015, than where it's at now, going into season number 11 here in 2025. And I thought I'd just quickly there's not much to update because we don't draft until Labor Day every year, but we do have 2 keepers, and our keeper system is whatever round they were drafted in last year, you take 1 round away. So if they're drafted in the 10th, they become a 9th. If they're drafted in the first round, obviously you can't keep them. If they were an undrafted waiver pickup, then they're a 16th and last round pick for the new season. And I think, and I've thought this a lot of times, and it ain't always been true, but I feel like this year I like what I got going on, because I'm going to be keeping Brock Bowers in the 9th round, or in the 8th round, I think. It's either the 8th or the 9th. I think he was 9th last year, so I'll be keeping him in the 8th. And I mean, he's going in the first/early second round in a lot of leagues. I mean, that's what I've seen. I've drafted 90 times. I'll get into that in a little bit too. And then I'm going to be keeping Bo Nix as a 16th round pick. So I'm giving up nothing for Nix, and I'm getting huge value on Bowers. And I can't be mad about that. Not at all. Like, definitely pleased with knocking out an elite level tight end that's going to get 15 points a game. And, I mean, shouldn't ever have a bad week. Should never have a complete egg. He should be totally fine. And I don't have to worry about where I'm going to draft a tight end during the draft. If I want to skip out on this wide receiver or running back that I like, because the run on tight ends could happen at any moment. And I don't know. I do have my own opinion on tight ends. I don't know if I'm going to share that at this time, but I'll just say there's more than several tight ends that I don't mind, and they come at all different areas of the draft. So you can make it make sense a lot of different ways at tight end. But with Bowers, there's consistency there. He's going to get big points every week. It's ridiculous draft value. It just makes way too much sense for me to keep him. And then Nix, I like Nix. I think he's going to be an 18, 20 point per game quarterback in a standard type of league. You know, we got some bonus stuff. I don't know. He has to hit 300 yards passing or 100 yards rushing to hit those bonuses. I don't know if he'll be doing that all the time, but I guess he could occasionally. But I feel like he's going to have a rushing floor. He'll get a few rushing touchdowns. Sean Payton will have the passing game moving. I just feel like he'll be okay. And if he's not, he is a 16th round pick anyway. And who knows, there's a chance I still take a quarterback sometime during the draft. Probably not too early, but you never know. So that's that as far as the CFL. And I guess, like I was saying, this is our 11th year. And it's been a lot of the same people in the league throughout the 11 years, but not a 100% of the time. And in fact, one of our almost original members left us after this last season. So we actually had 2 leave us. So we had to replace them. But I think we replaced those guys with guys that are much more interesting guys, much more fun guys, much more knowledgeable guys. And, well, at least let's put it like this. One of them's a real knowledgeable guy, and one of them's a real fun guy. So it all works itself out. Not that either one's not fun or not knowledgeable, but that's how I view those 2 guys. So that's just how it goes. And then with the CFL, oh yeah. So if it's been 6 years since I've recorded a podcast, that's crazy how time does go like that. But I do got to say that in 2021, I was able to win the championship in the CFL. And yeah, of course, I never got to, go on a podcast and boast about it. And what's the crazy thing, though? That was obviously that's what we play. More than if there is any money involved in that league. I'm not saying whether there is or there isn't. If there is, more than money being involved in that league or a trophy or anything else, you just want to win that league so bad. Like bragging rights or like just, I don't know, pat yourself on the back. It's just something about that league. You absolutely want to win that league for real. And I was able to get it done 1 time out of 10, hopefully 2 out of 11 this time, right? We got one team that came in like 2017 and they've won 4 already. It's insane. And when they draft last year, I'm thinking, there's so many picks I don't like on that team. And all of them picks that I thought were no good went crazy. So, and they won the league. So whatever, I guess. I guess they know more than I do. But the crazy thing is, when I won in 2021, I have had, there's been 3 seasons since then, 22, 23, 24. At least 2 of those teams, I had ridiculous rosters. Totally made the playoffs all of the years. But 2 of those teams had no business not at least making the championship. And of course, since we only take 4 teams into the playoffs, that means once you make the playoffs, if you win 1 game, you're in the championship. Well, I'm telling you, I haven't made the championship since then. So I make the playoffs with these ridiculous teams. And I don't just say that. I'm telling you, these teams were crazy. And then they don't make the championship. 1 and done in the playoffs. I mean, if it sucks sometimes, but getting that championship is huge. So, like I said though, Bowers and Knicks, I don't think you can beat it. Not for an 8th and a 16th round pick. I mean, I guess you might be able to beat it, but I don't know. I like it a lot. And on the topic of real, actual fantasy football leagues, during the week this last week, my buddy Charlie asked me if I could go to a draft for him on Sunday and draft for him. I guess he had to work or something like that. He just couldn't make it to the draft. And the thing about this draft that he was asking me if I could go to was that not only is it, if you're asking me to draft an offensive team, I can probably draft you a fairly solid team. That may be why he asked me. Maybe I was his 8th choice. I don't know. But the thing about this league is they're drafting individual defensive players also, which, well, it kind of turns me into a bit of a casual. But I for one, don't really know a ton of defensive players as much as I used to in my younger days. And that's because I don't play Madden like I used to. If you play Madden, you know everybody's roster. You know who's good. At least you think you know who's good based on a Madden rating. And that's how that goes. But besides not really knowing the defensive players in the NFL, I also don't really know how the scoring goes in an IDP league like that. I would suppose I've played in one before where it was like you pick 3 defensive players or something like that, and the way I would do it, I just go for the best floor and the scoring on that. And I think I've heard them talk about their scoring. I think you get good points for like interceptions and sacks and stuff like that, but you're not going to get an interception and a sack all the time. So for me, I would be trying to get the guys that get tackles all the time and rack up points after points after points. So like the linebackers and stuff. But I'm thinking in their type of league with the IDP, like they got a full IDP. You pick 3 linebackers, 4 linemen, 4 defensive backs, something like that. So you're going to have to pick all of those players anyway. And, besides the fact I had to work Saturday night, I would have been dead tired on Sunday anyway. I could not confidently accept the invitation for Charlie and go and draft his team in a confident manner. I could draft the offense all day long, but I would not want to put him in a bad spot. And I'm assuming Charlie's got tons of friends. I am certain that he found somebody to take care of that for him. I'm for sure about it, or maybe he found a way out of work. I don't know. I am not particularly certain about any of that, but yeah, I wouldn't have minded if it was just a regular league. If I hadn't worked Saturday night, it would have been, I wouldn't mind it at all. Actually, let me just stop. I don't really want to draft nobody's team. I really don't. Because then what happens when I'm wrong about some of my draft picks? Then I'm screwing you. You're mad at me. I don't know about it. I don't know. And it's the same thing with like when people say asking advice about drafts. It's like, listen, I can tell you what I think of this player and this player. As you could tell, I like to play the fence on a lot of things, whatever though. But I can tell you what I think of each player. But what I'm not going to do is make your draft pick for you. So you're just going to have to do that. But yeah, you know, if I can help, I can. Or if I can help, I will. But I don't want to screw you at the same time, you know?
You're listening to Cap Free Sports Radio.
Quarterback Club.
So I was going to make two different segments for these two upcoming guys I'm going to mention. But I think I'm going to tie it into one. We are kind of going on the fly here as we get our feet wet again in this podcast game. But there's two guys that are quarterbacks in the NFC that I feel are somewhat relatable in a certain sense. And the first guy is Caleb Williams. There's a lot of people that really doubt Caleb Williams. And like, I don't know if it's they actually doubt his football talent or ability to perform, but I really don't understand that because he's always performed at a high level. In college, he did not have a poor rookie season at all. He limited his turnovers in a huge way. And I totally understand if you don't like some of the things that he does off of the field or the way that he carries himself in certain situations. Completely understand that. I'll admit he's a little bit of a weird guy. No doubt about it. That doesn't make it so that he can't play football, though. And with Ben Johnson now in Chicago with him, I mean, I think it's fair to say that Ben Johnson has been able to put together good offenses up there in Detroit. So I don't see how Ben Johnson's going to hurt the kid. He's going to be all right. And Chicago has invested in weapons for Caleb Williams to use. Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, the last 2 years, they went and they got DJ Moore, he's a pretty boring number one wide receiver, but he's a pretty consistent number one wide receiver. And he kind of always was. I always kind of didn't want DJ Moore on any of my fantasy teams, but he's all right. He's okay. He can do some good stuff, and he stays healthy and he plays. So there's that. But then they also added in Loveland, the tight end. I want to say from Michigan. I don't want to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's from Michigan. And then they got Cole Kmet, but I ain't sure. I don't know. Cole Kmet's always kind of disappointed, but hey, in the secondary tight end role, he could get some sneaky action in there. So I think there's a fair amount of, weapons on offense for Caleb Williams to use. And with Ben Johnson running the offense, I think they're going to be okay on offense. Now, the one thing about Ben Johnson I will say, but it remains to be proven one way or the other, I feel like Ben Johnson is more of an offensive coordinator and less a leader of men. But we'll see. That's not really a fair thing to say at this point. We're going to have to see how it goes. If he wins games, nobody's going to care about none of that. If they struggle, that those type of things will come into question. So, but for real, this segment was specifically for the people who can't get over like how they think Williams sucks. I need a segment from you guys. You need to tell me, how does Caleb Williams suck? Using football reasons only. That other shit, who cares? I don't care. If you care, you're welcome to care about anything that's outside of football. But when the whistle goes on Sunday and it's time to play football, Williams is definitely a quality quarterback. He's been that way for several years. So, do what you got to do. I mean, and then the quarterback that I was going to tie in, or he was going to have his own segment, but I'm really not certain exactly where I want to go with it. It's just, it kind of ties in with Caleb. Caleb is in a position right now where, think back to last year, and this is for me too. It ain't got nothing to do with off the field stuff at all. But last year, about this time, coming up on week 1, I had it in my mind that Bryce Young is terrible. Bryce Young has no chance of being a good quarterback. And that, Carolina was wasting their time with Bryce Young. And then, he started off the season pretty poorly and got benched. And the crazy thing is, Andy Dalton came in. I think Andy Dalton played a pretty good game. They either won the first game with Dalton, then he played good, or he played good, but they still lost, or something like that. I know they ended up, maybe they won one, then they lost to the Raiders in a terrible fashion the next week. One way or the other, Bryce Young found his way back into the starting lineup eventually, and after that, he was playing pretty good for the rest of the season, including going toe-to-toe with Mahomes in a way. I mean, because they were down, and he brought them back, and they ended up getting that game tied at 27 before Mahomes got Butker in position for a walk-off field goal, which was not uncommon for the Chiefs last year to have walk-off wins. But for Bryce Young to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes like that, that says something. And then the last stages of the season, Bryce Young was putting up big numbers, really. So I'm just saying, if you look at how, at least I think I wasn't the only one that thinks Bryce Young was terrible starting off last year. Maybe some still do. I'm not one of them. I think he's okay. The height issue is still a concern for me, but he turned it around in a big way last year. So that's what I'm saying. These people that think Caleb suck right now, did you think Bryce Young sucked last year? So now I'm in a weird situation. I don't think Caleb sucks, but I did think Bryce Young sucked last year. But Bryce Young was able to prove eventually during last year that he does not suck, that he is a decent quarterback, and he's worth the time spent to continue to explore whether or not he can get you anywhere. And I think Williams not only deserves that same grace, but he never even showed you that he sucks. So we'll just see how that goes. And then as far as Bryce Young's weapons go, they got the McMillan from Arizona, who kind of under the radar because Arizona wasn't a national powerhouse by any means. He had a lot of catches last year. And, I knew about him because I play fantasy DFS. I see McMillan. He priced himself out. He was so good. You couldn't afford to click his name. But he would perform 30 points every week. So he had a whole shit ton of catches. So that had me assuming he's probably a small slot type of guy. Nah, upon my very casual light research, this guy's 6'5", so we'll see what happens with him in Carolina. And then Thielen, for whatever reason, doesn't die. He just keeps on going. And Bryce Young seems to love throwing it at Thielen, so there's a chance there. They got the Sanders tight end kid from Texas who has not yet got his feet off the ground, but the talent is definitely there. And they got a couple other receivers, Coker. They got the Xavier, is it Leggett? You know, everybody wants to say Leggett so bad, but Xavier Leggett, we'll see what happens with him. So Bryce Young's got a little bit to work with, and if all fails, having Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle behind you, that's a fail safe, or how would you say it? Keep the chains moving type of guys. Check down in the passing game. If everything's going good, maybe you don't even have to be throwing on any particular day. So, my opinion, Caleb Williams is good. Bryce Young is good. I bet you there's some people that would say both are terrible, but it ain't me. So keep your eyes on Williams and Bryce Young to have pretty decent seasons in 2025.
You're listening to Cap Free Sports Radio.
I'm not sure which of these recent years that it was that I discovered best ball. It was probably two or it was more than two. It was either 3 or 4 years ago. I learned about best ball, and I basically haven't looked back because, I keep my CFL league. At one point, 2 years ago, I switched to only the CFL, and I barely got in that league that year. I got out of both of my uncle's leagues. I dropped out of a few other leagues I was in. Last year, my buddy Josh got me into a dynasty league, which that's unique. That's something different. And it's funner than hell to try to build from I'm going to say build from the dirt. It wasn't even totally dirt because I had Jamar Chase, and the first thing I did was trade Jamar Chase for Lad McConkey and Jaden Daniels. And whatever. Is what it is. Dynasty's fun to build a team. So I had 2 leagues last year. But best ball is definitely the move. Because you just draft your team. For those that don't know, best ball, you draft your team, and that is it. You do not set the lineup. The system you're playing on, I play on DraftKings. It sets it for you. If you drafted 2 or 3 quarterbacks, whoever scored the most points that week, that's your quarterback for that week. Same with every position down the line. So there's no waivers or nothing to it. So when you're drafting, you got to be mindful of bye weeks. You got to protect yourself from injuries. So you can't just have one quarterback. He's going to have a bye week at some point. You're going to need another quarterback. And that goes for every position. And that's why there's 20 rounds instead of the standard 16 or however many your league might do. So you draft, you make sure the bye weeks don't overlap, especially with wide receivers and running backs. You try to make sure they don't overlap too heavily because it is likely, especially at wide receiver, that some of your receivers are going to overlap because as a general rule, maybe not as a rule, but basically the basic strategy of best ball is going to be to draft more wide receivers than anything else. And out of the 20 rounds, the standard draft would be 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, 6 running backs, and 8 wide receivers for your 20 rounds. That's the standard. You can do it any way you want. I've drafted as little as 2 quarterbacks, as much as 5 maybe. Probably not this year. I've drafted as little as 2 quarterbacks, as much as 5. I've drafted as little as 4, maybe 3 one time, running backs. And as much as, 8. And then receivers I've drafted as much as 12 receivers, but I don't think I've ever drafted, I know I haven't drafted less than 7 receivers in any draft. And then tight end, it's rare I'm only going to draft 2. It could happen if you got 2 really good ones. But generally you're going to draft 3 tight ends, sometimes 4, maybe 5, maybe. It's unlikely, but 3 or 4, generally 3. Like I said, what the basic was 3, 3, 6, 8. And I've drafted 90 drafts so far, and we're here on getting towards the 3rd week of the preseason. I've probably been drafting since around Memorial Day. More at certain times, as far as like week to week goes. Certain weeks more than others. At one point, I had 2 weeks off for vacation at work, and I started like 20 slow drafts at the same time. So basically, around the clock, I would have a draft pick to make. I'd have to check in whenever I felt like it on an 8-hour draft scale for each pick. But eventually, that kind of got annoying, really. And some of them slow drafts that I started, we were off the first 2 weeks of July. Some of them didn't get over till at least August. It was crazy. So it's like, man. And then now I'm only in like 2 slow drafts, and I find myself as the one who either forgets sometimes to look at my pick, or just, I don't know, just time. I don't know. So slow drafts no longer really the thing for me. I'll probably be exclusively in fast drafts. And I might even do one later on for my 91st draft. But I did want to share some of my top player exposures at each position. And the thing is, what you're going to find interesting here is, so the thing is, like, there's certain guys that you can draft every single draft because they're not a first or second round pick. You can't draft Jamar Chase every draft. You just can't do it. He's not there. If you have any pick after pick number 1, you're not going to get Jamar Chase. And that goes for a lot of guys in the earlier rounds. You just don't have the opportunity to take them every time. But the guys after like round 10, you know who your guys are. And you get the opportunity to take them over and over again. So it makes the numbers look like, dang, you really love that player. And yeah, maybe I do. And maybe I ain't even worried about it. But here's some of the guys that, because of, most of them are going to be because they're later picks and you're able to get them. So like, for example, here's my top, I don't know. There's just some of my top quarterbacks. I'm not going to put a number on it, but as of right now, the most drafted quarterback I have is Anthony Richardson. And I actually stopped drafting him for a little while there. So initially, I was drafting him a lot because he's basically a free pick. He's going so late that it's like, whatever. Like, if he plays, he's definitely fantasy worthy. So you take him. He's in 24% of my drafts, Anthony Richardson. Another guy I was loving early, but I didn't continue. I've backed off a little, is Tua for Miami. And he is in 22% of my drafts. And he's not as late as Richardson, but he's in the 120, 130, 140 range as far as overall pick. Now, this guy, Nix, he's a little bit higher. You got to take him. You got to actually want Nix to have a high exposure on Nix because he's not a later pick. He's a mid-round pick. Nix is in 19% of my drafts. Bryce Young, as I mentioned a moment ago, he is in 19% of my drafts, and it's a fairly later pick. Sam Darnold, he's in the same range there as Bryce Young. I actually, as long as it ain't a playoff game or a division title game, Sam Darnold has shown he can play. In fact, look for him to elevate Smith-Njigba out there. Not that he elevated Jefferson, but he didn't hurt Jefferson. I got Aaron Rodgers as a super late pick. And for a while there, he wasn't on a team. So 18%. Lamar Jackson is not at all a late pick. He's the second quarterback going, but he's right there with Allen, so it's about the same thing. And yes, I have tried to go out of my way. Okay, basically my quarterback strategy in these best balls is I either get Lamar Jackson or I wait. Because I feel like Lamar, he gives you a very good floor and a very good ceiling. Lamar's in 14% of my drafts. Kind of actually wish that was a little higher. Mayfield is in the same range as Bo Nix, 11%. Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams are both right by each other in the mid-range, 11% each. So that's quarterbacks for now. As far as running backs, my top running backs is Rico Dowdle. He's on Carolina. Yes, he is a backup, but hey, he's a late pick, so that's how you end up with him. 31% of drafts. Caleb Johnson for Pittsburgh. I am so high on this kid. 28% of my drafts. It's not a free pick, but he's in like the 50 to 70 range a lot of times. So you can get him if you want him, which I do. So I've got a ton of them. Jonathan Taylor. Okay, so it's not a free pick. He's a second round pick, which I'm kind of curious why he's not really a first round pick. So that's why you can get him a lot of times. If you don't got, basically you can always get him in the second round. And yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, 27% of my drafts. I'm not mad about that at all. Justice Hill, he's a later pick, 27%. Braylon Allen's a young guy I liked last year a lot. I'm not giving up on him at all. He just needs the opportunity to play every down, 20%. Najee Harris, I don't know what's going on with him and the firework blowing his eye up or whatever, but he needs to get on the field because I got 19% of him. Chuba Hubbard, love him. He kind of ties in with Dowdle. 18% of my drafts. He's like a fourth or fifth round pick. Kamara, I don't know why not. They said they've been trying to tell me Kamara is no good anymore for like 3 years. And then he always is just fine to me. And on a team where the quarterback ain't going to be that great, he might be the best receiver they got eventually. 17% on Kamara. He's in the same range as Chuba Hubbard. Charbonnet made this list at 17%. He is a fairly later pick. Well, no, he's more of a mid-round pick. He just needs the opportunity too, because he's a nice pass catching back. And I'm glad A-Chain is on here at the bottom. I figured A-Chain was going to be higher. He's right there with Taylor. End of the first, beginning of the second. He's actually higher than Taylor. A-Chain is the end of the first, beginning of the second. And Taylor is more of like the mid-second. And I'm so confused about that. But yeah, A-Chain, definitely looking for a big year on A-Chain. My wide receiver exposure, number one at 35%, Alec Pierce. He is such a late pick. And in this format, as I was telling you, it does not matter if the guy has a 0-point week, he just won't be in your lineup. Alec Pierce is the type of guy who will either have a 0 or a 20 because he has a long touchdown. So that's why he's on 35% of my teams, and he's a late pick. So it works out just fine for me. And the same exact reasoning is why Marvin Mims is 30%, because if he has nothing, he won't be in the lineup. If he scores 20, he might be in the lineup. Shaheed, he actually has consistently decent game logs, 27%. He's kind of a later pick too. And like I said, Adam Thielen, he's a later pick, 26%. Wan'Dale Robinson's right there with Thielen, 26%. They both share the same bye week. So a lot of drafts, it's either take Thielen or Robinson. The guy I'm big on this year, Calvin Austin, it looks like he's lining up to be the number 2 receiver on Pittsburgh. 25%. Ray McCloud is a late pick. He shares the same bye week with Calvin Austin. 24%. So it's like get one or the other of those guys. Plus, so with Calvin Austin, Pickens left, and with McCloud, Mooney is hurt. So now Godwin, I've got away from here recently, but he was getting big numbers off me. 19%. Looks like we're gonna miss several weeks off him. His logs are just so good. It's like once you get him in, he can really help you. So hopefully he gets back fairly quick. Cooper Kupp at 19%. I'm not sure how to take it with Kupp because he was not very good last year, but I don't think he sucks. The thing is, he couldn't catch the ball last year because it never got thrown his way because the Rams were so dead set on throwing the ball to Puka Nacua. So we'll see how Darnold does that between Kupp and Smith and Jigba. I think it could be okay. We'll see. I'm a little skeptical. And Kupp is trending backwards in the drafts towards the middle, so we'll see. And then McMillan for Tampa Bay. A guy that started exploding at the end of last year. But then they draft a rookie receiver fairly early. But Godwin's hurt. You still got Evans. I don't know. I feel like the opportunity's going to be there. He's a later pick. He's right there with Thielen and Wan'Dale Robinson. So it definitely can work out. And he is 19% of my drafts. And then tight end, probably, I don't know if it's my favorite position, but let's see. All right, Johnson for New Orleans, such a late pick, 26%. Kelsey, oh my God, 24% of my drafts. The ADP, the average draft position on Kelsey, does not make sense to me. They think this guy just is complete trash. For his ADP, and there's been times I've had to force myself not to take him. Because I don't know. They don't want him this year. I don't see why not. I think he's just as good as pretty much anybody. He's going to be totally fine. There's nothing wrong with Kelsey. I'm taking him in a lot of times. Okay, so like my sleeper of the year. And I could be dead wrong. This guy could never play. He could sit on the practice squad. Or he could really blow up. Rondé Gadsden the second. For the Chargers, who have a reasonable quarterback, don't have amazing tight ends in front of him. You obviously know his dad was a good wide receiver for the Dolphins in the 90s. And this kid was an absolute destroyer at Syracuse. And yes, Syracuse offense did have Kyle McCord throwing for the most yards in the whole country. And Gadsden was a perfectly good size part of that. So and he's a 20th round pick on here, so just is what it is. It either works or it don't, and I think it might. Zach Ertz is going way too late for his production, 22%. And Njoku, he ain't going as late as Ertz is, but he's going too late for how good his production was, 20%. Higbee is kind of a throwaway, but he's a very late pick, 20%. His production was good when he came back last year. Let me skip Waller for 1 second because Ferguson ties in with Higbee. Ferguson at 16%. So it's like one or the other for the Rams. Somebody's going to have to catch it. Waller is at 17%, and the crazy thing is he wasn't always, I don't know if he wasn't always available, but he certainly was not always on the roster for Miami because he just came out of retirement about a month ago. So I must really like Waller. He's going super late, so I don't know why he can't play. I think he should be cool. This guy, Johnson for the Giants, 16%. A lot of those picks are here in the last, 2 weeks. Kind of wish I had more. I think he's going to be pretty good. And then Kyle Pitts also at 12%. For a general rule, I am never taking Kyle Pitts in a real league. No chance of that at all. That's just absolute disappointment waiting to happen. But in a best ball, where you're going to have 2 or 3 other tight ends, and you can survive when Kyle Pitts disappoints you because somebody else will take his spot automatically, I think he's worth it. He's going pretty late, like 140, 150s now. Might even be later than that. We'll see. Penix is the new quarterback. We'll see. And he says he plans to throw it at Pitts. We all know Pitts has all the talent in the world. So we'll see if he can put it together on Sundays and make anything happen. Because the time's about to be running out on him. Or maybe he just needs a change team. I don't know. But for the price, Pitts is worth it in a best ball. But I would not recommend Pitts in a real league. So, yeah, that's my best ball exposure. Felt I would share that. If I'm in a league with you and we still have a draft to do, just realize I have drafted 90 times right now. I'll probably have drafted over 100 times by the time we get to our draft day. So I've probably seen every scenario. And it doesn't mean I'm going to have a perfect draft, but it means I'm going to be prepared for a lot of different scenarios in a draft. So is what it is.
You're listening to Cap Free Sports Radio.
And one thing I just wanted to share before I go ahead and get up out of here is that about over 3.5 years ago now, on February 15th, 2022, I had my last drink of alcohol, and it was one hell of a night. It was the night after the Rams and the Bengals played in the Super Bowl. So take that for like context. As we all know, the Chiefs have played in every single Super Bowl since then, and that's 3 times. So it was the night after the Chiefs didn't play in the Super Bowl. Drank like hell that Super Bowl. Woke up pretty much drunk and kept drinking and went out here, and there, and everywhere. I actually ended up seeing like all the people I used to drink heavily with that night somehow, some way, or somewhere. And I don't know, I woke up the next day. I did have to go to work, and I did go to work, and it was not a fun day. Did not feel well in any way, physically or mentally or nothing. And I actually had a text from my buddy Nick. I had it saved somewhere for a long time. It was like a notification on my phone. It said, you need to quit drinking or some shit, because I probably did some real dumb shit. I actually won a hell of a lot of money at the casino playing poker somehow, even though I was drunk as shit. And I don't know. It's just, I think it was that day I pretty much decided I ain't doing this no more. It just ain't worth it to be a complete idiot all of the time. Or, I didn't used to drink every day, but when I did drink, it was making up for the days I didn't. We'll put it like that. And I think everybody that's probably listening knows. And if you don't, just take my word for it. And yeah, it's not even really a thought anymore at all. It's not even ever a consideration. It wouldn't bother me when I go to my draft on Labor Day and it's at the bar. It ain't gonna bother me at all. It's just not a thing at all. It doesn't really exist in my mind. And the only reason that I am even speaking on it at this particular stage, this moment, well, because I haven't seen or talked to y'all for 6 years, and because I just hit 3.5 years on the 15th. So that's it. That's all. I just wanted to share that. I didn't really know where to fit it into the podcast, whether to lead off with that or close with it or throw it somewhere in the middle. It just so happened that I sat here and recorded several segments in a row, and that was the last one left. So I went ahead and I would share that. as far as this podcast goes, we're gonna keep it going, and we're gonna try. I mean, this first episode may seem a little rough around the edges and bare bones because I've switched some of the ways I'm uploading this and recording this, and don't have everything I used to have available to me at this moment, and I'm working through a few things, maybe get a theme song, just a lot of stuff. You want to make sure not to bust any copyrights or anything like that, so we're going to work through that. And basically, sometimes I just got shit to say, and I'm going to just go ahead and say it from now on. And if you want to listen, you will, and if you don't, you won't. For the people that do and did, you know how this goes. I appreciate you. Thank you. T.Y. Hilton, boy!
You're listening to Cap Free Sports Radio, where the takes are bold, the facts are real, and the cap is nowhere in sight. From the locker room to the headlines, we keep it 100 every sport, every time.